Good morning, thriving warriors and those who wish they were. Alexa, what is the date and time?
It's 6:13 a.m. Hope you're having a good weekend, Edward.
Okay, Alexa, what is the date? Alexa, what's the date?
Today is Sunday, July 31st.
Aha. Okay, now Alexa, what can you tell us about Ignatius of Loyola?
According to Wikipedia, Ignatius of Loyola, S.J., venerated as Saint Ignatius of Loyola, was a Spanish Catholic priest and theologian who, with Peter Faber and Francis Xavier, founded the religious order of the Society of Jesus and became its first superior general in Paris in 1541. He envisioned the purpose of the Society of Jesus to be missionary work and teaching.
Aha. And Alexa, when did Ignatius of Loyola die?
Ignatius of Loyola died on July 31st, 1556, at the age of 64 years.
Wow. Cool. Good system. This is the 466th anniversary of the death of St. Ignatius. And I think it's fitting and proper that as an Ignatian spirituality oriented school type thing, we spend a few minutes talking about St. Ignatius or Ignatius of Loyola. First, again, thank you, Jeannie. Okay, who is St. Ignatius and why should we care? Who's Ignatius of Loyola and why should we care? Basically, because he's a man after our own heart, either as a thriving warrior or as someone who has been to prison, who's been incarcerated. He's a guy that lived life, had a complete change of life, circumstances, unintended circumstances caused unintended consequences, went through some mental and emotional hardships, kept going, did not give up, came out the other end, applied Seth Godin's formula well before there was a Seth Godin, 400 years, for almost 400, probably 480 years before there was a Seth Godin, 400 years before there was a Seth Godin. He applied it, and the fruits of his labors are that it is probably the largest network of higher education in the world, with over 130 universities and high schools, preparatory schools, including 28 in the US and about 60 in India. So that should tell you something. And it started with a simple idea in the mind of somebody who was physically tough and emotionally tough. And with that physical and emotional toughness, he was able to become spiritually tough and withstand pressures. So Ignatius started out in a family, a somewhat noble family that had land but didn't really have money. And he was around the 13th child. So his oldest brother could have been his dad. Further, back in those days, and maybe, who knows, perhaps still in Spain, the oldest son inherits everything. The second son is the spare. might marry off the daughter of a noble who has no brothers, or become a priest. So if you weren't number 1, not great. If you were number 13, good luck, pal. Go make it. So being a soldier was one way to make money because of the concept of booty. Booty kind of reminds me of tit for tat. Booty, which is the spoils of war, the stuff that you get to collect, and you have to give some to your superior officers, and they kick them up and kicks them up and kicks them up. And that's the way it worked. That's the law of conquest. We go to war, we beat you, we get to take your stuff. So Ignatius was good at that. I think he was a captain, was injured in a battle against the French at Pamplona, severely injured. They took pity on him. They let him go recuperate at home. But by the time he got there, his leg had set badly. So they broke it, reset it. This time a bone was sticking out the front, and he was shorter. And being a guy that was very vain, very egotistical, and in those days wearing silk stockings, it was like, oh, hell no. That's not me. I'm not going to do that. So I need you to break my leg again, saw off the bone, and attach some weights to it like bags of sand or rocks and stretch it out. So he endured a painful recovery while he was doing this, though he had a lot of time on his own to think and contemplate and figure out his place in the world. So naturally, his imagination brought him back to what he knew, his memories of life in court, and then he would project that into the future, continuing to go out and gamble and fight and screw women and tell bawdy tales and etc. Life of glory. After a while, hedonic adaptation. That kind of gets boring. Good morning, Jeff. What time are you leaving? Jeff is on his way up. So that kind of got boring. Hedonic adaptation. You can only relive your past exploits until they kind of get boring. You know what it is, and you can only think of so many different versions of when you get back to court. Kind of got bored. There was a couple books in the house, Lives of the Saints, Imitation of Christ. He started reading those, and his imagination carried him into thinking about, wow, this was kind of cool. What if I do this? So he had new fodder, new things to do. After a while, I don't know, 11 months, whatever, he decided he needed to leave. There was no place for him on his brother's and the family estate. Probably his brothers were, no, Inigo, don't go, stay. You've always got a place here. But he decided, no, I'm going to go be a soldier for Mary. I'm going to be this new thing. And took off on a donkey, on a pilgrimage. Anyway, long story short, things did not go well for him. Ultimately, months later, he ended up in a cave, beating himself, scourging himself for his sins of his life, asking God for guidance. One day, sitting on the banks of the Cardinal River, which Father Max, our spiritual director, has been to some years back, he had a vision which he could not adequately put into words in his autobiography, other than it was a vision like he'd never had before. And that was now the spark. Oh, good. Jeff was already on his way. That was the spark that got him going, motivated to change the world, which his goal wasn't to change the world, but literally the spark, because of a radical belief at the time, which is that God is in all things. That piece of wood over there, God is in that piece of wood. You don't need You don't solely need the intervention of saints, of priests, to communicate between you and God. God is in all things. And even in the most vile person, there is still a spark that could be nurtured. So he went out, spread the good news, here's what God told me, and then quickly ran into trouble with the authorities once again. This wasn't his first time. His first time was when he was a soldier, and the accusations were something like rape, and he used some obscure legal tactic to get out of it because he was a noble person, and who knows, maybe it was a barmaid, it was just, non-consensual sex. No big deal at the time. Well, it was sort of a big deal, but he got off. This time, though, it was, who the hell are you spreading this message? Because of his family connections and his history, they didn't just burn him at the stake. They made him an offer he couldn't refuse, which was either go and get an education, or the next time we catch you doing this, it's going to be really bad. So he went to school, swallowed his pride, went to school to learn Latin with a bunch of kids. After a couple of years, he went to university, Salamanca or Alcala. Didn't really do well there because they didn't like this guy talking about stuff. Then he went to Salamanca, I think, or Alcala, whichever he went first. He went to the other one second. That didn't really work out. So he went to the University of Paris University, where he met two great people, Francis Xavier and Peter Faber. Seth Godin, step 2. Found part of the status quo to change, step 1. Step 2, tell a compelling story. Now he found some people. Step 3, connect the true believers and ignore the non-true believers. Then their group grew to 10. And they decided they wanted to do things together. Timing was right. The trend was their friend. The Reformation was going on. Protestants were creating new religions. The church was under attack. They needed smart, educated people to help keep the faith going so it didn't collapse entirely. And so they got in positions of power because they were guys with typically high IQs and education. They were able to spread the word. And one tactic they used was to go to people, serfs, SERFs, out in the country and say, we're going to set up a school. How would you like it if your kids could read? How would you like that? And some people said, wow, I always wanted to read. Yeah, I'll do it. How much do I have to pay? Well, nothing, but if you want to donate, that would be nice too. And they started setting up schools all over Europe. And then they had missionary work going on in the Far East and, well, everywhere, United States, the Montana territories, the Yellowstone Park, the Southwest, Father Kino, the Northwest, DeSmit. And they all had a similar idea, which is we can make a difference. Obedience to our superior. We are like a broom in the hand of a broomsman. We do what we are told to do, and we know what we're doing is right, and they find a way or make a way. And because they're smart, they got a lot of stuff accomplished. So at the age of 64, 466 years ago, St. Ignatius died. Oftentimes it's attributed to the times when he was living in a cave when his health suffered tremendously from, eating whatever he could find, plus begging for food. But always pursuing a path of a better life, always trying to get from point A to point B, being highly disciplined, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Somebody who had been a soldier, a literal soldier, literally a soldier who commanded men in battle, who knows how many people he killed, and then turned it all around. So psychiatrists would say that during the period of convalescence, after they sawed off the bump on his leg, etc., and then when he went out into when he was living in the cave, he was having, severe mental problems. That was probably delusional, they would say. They would say he was probably delusional, kept spiraling down, but his vision, or a psychiatrist might say, yes, he had a vision, but it was rooted inside of his brain after months and months and months of intense praying, seeking an answer to a question. Neuroscientists might say, if you ask your brain a question, you'll come up with an answer. And who knows, maybe the vision that St. Ignatius experienced was neuroscience type of thing. The brain did what the brain does and came up with an elegant solution answer that could not be refuted, which was God is inside of all things. You do not need a priest in order to experience God, the love of God. So, this is the anniversary, the 466th anniversary of his death. I can tell you that a very long list of important people have graduated from or experienced Jesuit education, which really focuses on, and I'll close with this, focuses on seven things. Here they are. Number one, and I think we do this too. Number one, cura personalis. Jesuit education emphasizes the view that each person is a unique creation of God. Care for the whole self. It's demonstrated personal. Okay. Deep respect for diversity and difference, and an emphasis on holistic care. Okay. So 1, every person is a unique creation. 2, discernment. Be open to God's spirit as they make decisions and take actions that contribute to the greater good. Discernment is practiced through prayer, reflection, consultation with others, and considering the full impact of actions from diverse angles. 3, finding God in all things. It encompasses imagination, emotion, and intellect. People are encouraged to seek the divine in all things, in all people and cultures, in all areas of study, learning, everything. Magis, commitment to the concept of magis, more, which is Latin for more, challenges students to go beyond what is expected, interacting with the world with generosity, excellence, and empathy. Magis is modeled by personal accountability and high expectations of achievement. Number 5, reflection. Foundational value is the practice of reflection. Students are invited to pause to consider the world around them and their place within it before making decisions. This includes challenging the status quo, something that's a fundamental thing of what we do. We are always challenging the status quo, acknowledging biases and accepting responsibility. Service rooted in justice and love. The value is illustrated through community service programs. So what do we say? What's our definition of success? Money times meaning and purpose, where purpose is service to others. Solidarity and kinship. Students work together for the greater good. They develop relationships with their surrounding communities and share their talents and skills. This value is practiced through community-engaged learning. Okay, so those are the 7 parts of a Jesuit education. And with that, this is Sunday, the 466th anniversary of the death of Ignatius of Loyola. who created the basis for the largest network of education in the world, worldwide. 11% of people in Congress have Jesuit educations, which is the highest of any single thing in the US. So 11% of the roughly 535 senators and congressmen. The governor of California graduated from Santa Clara, where I graduated. My classmate was Janet Napolitano, who was head of Homeland Security under President Obama. And at the same time, Leon Panetta was head of the CIA. He was also a Santa Clara graduate. Jerry Brown, who was the governor of California for a few terms, graduate of Santa Clara. And that's just one. Dr. Fauci, Holy Cross. I think he graduated from Holy Cross. Jesuit education. Bill Clinton, Georgetown, Jesuit education. So these are people who have something in common with all of us. And with that, 21 minutes. Okay. No one's going to watch this whole thing. So boom, yesterday was the only easy day. Compare yourself today to who you were yesterday, not to someone else. Again, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Uncomfort is the new norm. Let's go out and make something happen today as we start the move to Amargosa. And cut.